Hello and welcome to another Dominion 6 Quick Tips. In this episode we're going to be going over province scales and what effects they can have. So you can see the scales in a certain province by looking under the Dominion tab on the right hand side and having a look at the scales here. You can also click on these scales to get a better idea of what the scale effects are in that particular province. Scales can vary in provinces due to events, season and magic site effects, but they will also try and drift back to the Dominion scales that were set at Pretender design when under a Dominion. The chance of scales moving towards the Dominion scales at the end of a turn is 5% multiplied by the Dominion level in the province, plus 10% times the difference between the current scale and the Dominion scale level. So if the difference is big, scales will change quickly regardless of Dominion level. When there's only a small difference, it will be mostly through the Dominion strength in a province. Summer will increase temperature scales by 1, winter will decrease it by 1, but this does not affect underground or deep sea provinces. Scales can range from -5 to +5, but they're usually within -3 to +3. Anything -4 or under, or +4 or above, is classed as an extreme scale, and we'll go over them in a second. I'll give you a list of the full effects for each level of scale. So for the following explanation, remember that for bad side of scales, they are negative, so that make the positive benefits into a negative and vice versa. I'll also bring up an image to help you visualize it better. Okay, so for order turmoil scales, you multiply the scale level in the province by the following. Income plus 3%, resources plus 2%, recruitment points plus 10%, unrest reduction plus 1, -2 random events. For productivity or sloth, you multiply the scale level in a province with income plus 3%, resources plus 15%. For heat and cold, it's 5% less income and 10% less supplies for every step away from your nation's temperature preference, which you can find when you select the nation or by looking at the national overview. For us currently as Mictlan, we have a preference for heat 1. So because we are currently at heat 3, we have an additional -10% income and -20% supplies. Any deviation from your nation's temperature preference will cause these negatives. For growth and death scales, multiply the scale level in a province with the following. Population growth plus 0.2%, supplies plus 10%, income plus 1%. Fortune and misfortune, multiply the scale level in the province with the following. Chance of a random event being good, plus 10%. Chance of a national hero, plus 0.5%, and for every point of scale deviation away from 0, you add plus 5 additional chance for more random events. This is not made negative in misfortune. Misfortune will still cause an additional chance for random events, they're just more likely to be negative. For magic and drain, you multiply the scale level in the province with the following. -0.5 magic resistance to all units in a province, -10% fatigue from spellcasting, +1 research point. Just so you don't get confused, with magic scales, everybody loses magic resistance. With drain scales, everybody gains magic resistance. So, we can see that bad scales have a bad effect on the province that they are in. But sometimes it's necessary to get the paths or blesses that you need on your pretender when you're designing your nation. Some nations additionally do also enjoy having bad scales, such as Pangea receiving Maenads from Turmoil, same with Yomi with its Oni spawning. Extreme scales are any scales above or below 3 or -3 respectively. They have additional detrimental effects of the province they are in. I'll pull up another image now so you can see. Okay, so as we can see, when you have order 4 or above, you start to lose magical research. -2 research points for order of 4, -4 for order of 5. With productivity 4 and above, people start to get unruly and the unrest will increase by 1 to 5 or 1 to 15 for productivity 5 in the province per month. At heat 4+, you decrease the population in a province by 0.4% per month or 1% for heat 5. For cold is exactly the same, but for cold 4 and cold 5. Having extreme heat or cold will cause your population to die very rapidly, especially if it's -5 or 5. Growth of 4+ slowly turns plains into forest or into farms if you also have an order scale. Additionally, seas will be turned into kelp forests. At growth 5, it will also additionally turn these farms into forests. If you have a death scale 4 or above, it will slowly turn forests and farms into plains and then plains into wasteland. At Fortune 4+, you decrease the income and resources by 5%, or if you're at Fortune 5, by 15% for your income and resources. At Magic 4+, horror marks will start to afflict your commanders and units within the province, which will then be attacked by horrors, or at least have an increased chance of being attacked. Unrest will also increase by 1 to 5 per month, or 1 to 15 for Magic 5. As far as I've been able to tell, there doesn't seem to be any additional negatives to having a high drain of 4 or 5, or misfortune 4 or 5, other than the effect the scale would have at that number. Bear in mind that these are additional effects for being of an extreme scale, and the usual base effects will apply for whatever scale number you're at in a province. Okay, so that's just gone through scales rather quickly, but hopefully that'll give you a good idea of how scales work within Dominions 6. Let me know if there's any other topics you'd like me to cover, and until next time, take care.